What lengths would you go to for the comforts of home? An On Your Side investigation has uncovered Governor Pat McCrory spending tens of thousands of dollars to fly between the governor's mansion in Raleigh and his home in Charlotte, sometimes multiple days each week. Investigative reporter Nick Oxner has spent dozens of hours poring over flight records. And Nick, you've been pressing to get this information.
Yeah, Paul, we first asked for the governor's travel records from his first 2 years in office starting in early January. The records show McCrory flies around the state frequently, often on official business. But we also found more than 100 flights that could have been avoided had he just stayed in Raleigh.
The state jet took off from the Concord Airport last Thursday, having just dropped off Governor Pat McCrory at home following events in Fayetteville and Wilmington. Travel records from McCrory's first 2 years in office show a pattern of the former Queen City mayor using state airplanes to hitch a ride home and back to Raleigh. We reviewed flight logs and calendars from McCrory's first 2 years in office, flagging any flight in which the plane flew empty, with the governor's staff picking him up or dropping him off, or that could have been avoided had McCrory stayed in Raleigh. We found 125 flights.
North Carolina state government does not need an Air Force, and when you have planes, you're going to invite controversy over their use.
Francis DeLuca is president of the conservative-leaning Civitas Institute. He's long advocated for the state to sell its passenger aircraft.
The less state aircraft, the less chance there is of controversy.
Controversy has followed other recent governors who used the state plane. Then Governor Mike Easley, a Democrat, came under fire in 2008 for using the state helicopter and airplanes to fly to his home in Southport, often for the weekend. On Your Side Investigates found McCrory doing the same thing. Take the 3-day stretch from November 7th through 9th, 2013. A state plane flew to and from the Concord Airport near Charlotte a total of 10 times, dropping McCrory off in Charlotte each night and flying back to pick him up every morning. Flights like these have cost taxpayers nearly $60,000.
We made multiple requests to interview McCrory, but never heard back from his staff. So we came here to Raleigh, to the governor's mansion, to try to talk to McCrory ourselves, but couldn't get inside. So we tried making one last phone call.
Hi, you've reached the press office of North Carolina Governor Pat McCrory.
Nearly all of the governor's flights home or to Asheville, where the western residence is, coincide with an official event. They also frequently fall on a Thursday or Friday, and McCrory spends the weekend at home.
What kind of message do you think that sends to the public?
Well, I think it sends the same message we like to give, that state government have too much money, too many things.
Do you think there's any chance of getting some reform to the aircraft fleet anytime soon?
I don't think it's real high on anybody's priority list. Wish it would be, because it's an easy place to make some changes and also reduce any chance of things appearing wrong.
Now, we received a statement from the governor's press secretary this afternoon after more than a week of requesting an interview with the governor. The statement says, in part, quote, "The governor is proud to visit his home and office in Charlotte. The current manner of using state aircraft is the most efficient and lowest cost option when it comes to expense and man hours." Now, we're going to continue pressing for an on-camera interview with the governor so he can explain to you his use of the state planes. Guys, back to you.
All right, Nick, if you'd like to see the governor's travel records for yourself, we've posted them along with the data that we've compiled on our website. It's live right now on WBTV.com. On Your Side Investigates. New documents show tens of thousands of dollars in flights on state airplanes for the governor to attend political meetings.
This broadcast is sponsored by Subaru South Boulevard and Subaru Concord. WBTV. On Your Side. WBTV News starts right now.
Questions tonight for Governor Pat McCrory over his use of state aircraft to travel to political events not related to his job as governor. Welcome to WBTV News. I'm Paul Cameron.
And I'm Maureen O'Boyle. It's nice to have you with us at 6. The law says the governor can use the state plane to fly to political events, but taxpayers have to be reimbursed for the cost of the flights.
Records supplied by the governor's office show McCrory has taken tens of thousands of dollars in flights on state planes, but only a fraction of that has been paid back. Investigative reporter Nick Oxner live in Raleigh tonight. Nick, why are we just now learning about this?
Yeah, Paul, we first made a public records request for these records at the beginning of the year in early January, but the North Carolina State Highway Patrol didn't provide us McCrory's travel records until this Friday. Now our attempts to get an explanation from Governor McCrory and his political allies has been met with silence. When Governor Pat McCrory needs to travel out of state to a conference or a political event, he sometimes hops on a state airplane.
Records show McCrory flew on the state jet or twin-engine turboprop at least 6 times between 2014 and 2016 to attend meetings of the Republican Governors Association. Elon law professor Elliot Engstrom says elected officials like McCrory can use state resources to fly to political events so long as they follow the law.
So it's okay to use a state resource if you're going somewhere as long as you reimburse the state the amount. So if I'm the governor, for instance, and I use a state plane to fly to a political meeting, that's okay so long as I pay them back or someone pays the state back. As long as someone pays them back.
We did the math and determined McCrory's 6 trips cost taxpayers more than $60,000. Records show the RGA paid for some of McCrory's use of the state plane, but the $15,000 we found fell far short of the total bill McCrory racked up flying to political conferences. When we asked the RGA why there was such a big gap between what they'd reimbursed and the amount of flights McCrory had flown, a spokesman said he'd check and get back to us, but never did. Engstrom, the law professor, says state law calls for a public official misusing state resources to be removed from their position, something harder to do when you're talking about an elected official like McCrory.
Ultimately, I think that with constitutional officers, the accountability here comes from the voters. It comes from the press and the voters. That's the check that we have on constitutional officers doing this kind of stuff. Now, when we started looking at Governor McCrory's out-of-state travel, we also found what appears to be the governor undervaluing trips that outside groups paid for him to take out of state. We're breaking down those details at 7 o'clock on WBTV News Primetime. For now, reporting live in Raleigh, Nick Oxner, WBTV, on your side.
A spokesman for McCrory says his office is working to provide additional documents outlining his political travel, but we have yet to receive them.
All new on Primetime, a review of state ethics forms filed by Governor Pat McCrory show he may have underreported the value of trips he took that were paid for by outside groups. Our review of the governor's travel began this weekend when the McCrory administration provided WBTV with a new set of documents that we first requested back in January. Investigative reporter Nick Oxner is breaking down details.
A flight to D.C., a night in a hotel room, and breakfast with a group of Republican governors? That'll cost just $240, according to the ethics report filled out by Governor Pat McCrory. That trip to Washington for a Republican Governors Association breakfast in February 2014 is one of a half dozen we found with a declared value that just doesn't add up. McCrory flew to some of the events in question on a state plane, like 2 trips in 2014 to Philadelphia and Chicago, also for the Republican Governors Association. RGA records show they reimbursed the North Carolina Department of Transportation, which bills for the use of state aircraft, a total of about $10,000. McCrory included both trips on his Statement of Economic Interest filed in early 2015, but listed the combined value of the RGA's contribution at just $3,000. A year later, in April of 2015, McCrory took a commercial flight out to California to attend an event hosted by the Milken Institute. His ethics form lists the value of that trip at $200. But State Treasurer Janet Cowell went to the same conference. Her ethics form values the trip at $10,000. By email, a spokesman for McCrory says the Milken Institute only paid for McCrory's meals and says the $200 value is accurate. The rest, he says, was paid for by McCrory's campaign. The governor's office says all other values reported on McCrory's ethics forms are based on estimated values given by the organizations that paid for the governor's travel. Reporting in Raleigh, Nick Oxner, WBTV, on your side.
A spokesman for Governor McCrory says his office is working to provide additional documents outlining his political travel, but we have yet to receive them. When we do, we will post those details along with his ethics forms on our website. Just head to WBTV.com.